Morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of Cannabis Live from the Cannabis Legal Group. I'm Craig Aronoff, along with Barton Morris, and we're here today to talk about some business planning and how to raise capital. Before we do, though, what we'd like to do is, of course, have you like us, share us. Feel free to ask questions throughout. We love the interaction. We also want to point out that we've added a new link at the top of our page. You want to talk about that?
The industry about to blow up in the state of Michigan with respect to different types of facilities being licensed is inevitably going to lead to a lot of jobs creation. We talk about that a lot in our municipal meetings when we talk about cities to cities about the benefits of having these companies and these businesses within their city and licensing them, because it's going to cause a lot of new jobs. And in order to have a place where people can go, a central location where people can go and get these jobs, we've created a new page on our website to collect people, resumes. There's a place where you can go and tell us that you're interested in a job, because not only are we dealing with a lot of people that are looking for jobs, a lot of companies that are looking for jobs for trained individuals that are that have experience in the industry, and those that don't, because we're gonna find training for those too. But so for people that are looking for a job, they can come to our website. It's listed there, cannabis-legal-group.com. I can actually show it to you. Hopefully, here it is right here, connecting the talent and industry leaders, so that people can come here, submit your resume, put your information in there. Tell us what you're interested in. See a list of things that might be of interest to you. Of course, your geographic location is important. And then we will compile this list and provide it to companies that are looking to employ. And they're all looking to employ. Looking to hire somebody. They want qualified individuals. So we're going to do two things with this. We're going to match people that are looking for jobs in the cannabis industry to employers, but also we're going to then provide training opportunities to individuals. And so even if you don't have any training at all or no experience whatsoever in the cannabis industry, but you still want to be a part of it, please sign up, and then we're going to find training opportunities for you, because the better trained you are, the more marketable you will be, and the more likely you will find a position for yourself within the industry.
Yeah, certainly we know that not everybody's going to be an owner of a facility, but we're hearing from a lot of talent that's out in the industry that is trying to find their space. So we're hoping to be able to marry the talent to the operators and really allow this area to thrive. And as Barton said, training is going to be a key component, so you're going to see that interaction as well. So, whatever experiences you have, we're going to try to tap into that and then, of course, expand it. Please also don't forget our cannabislegalgroup.com/municipalities page. That has been thriving. We've really appreciated the feedback we've received on that. Please look to that if you're looking for how communities are reacting. We very much encourage the interaction and look to hear from you on that. But certainly we're trying to do the best to keep a repository for the municipalities. And now what we're looking to do is keep a repository for our operators of potential employees, so that we can get these businesses up and running and trained as we get going. So we're here today to talk about business planning and raising capital. And it's kind of getting to that point in time where, a lot of our clients have kind of started either finding the municipality, they're engaged in the municipality. But as we prepare for the application phase, which is coming near the end of the year, of course, making sure that people are properly capitalized is becoming a really important feature that we're going to need to be putting together. So we wanted to kind of circle back to a topic, addressed earlier, but at the same time talk about it a little bit deeper now. Very specifically, of course, the first thing and foremost is, what is the mission of your company, and know your numbers. So as we talk about trying to engage with investors, those two things are going to be very key components to the process. So
you want to talk about the Bureau of Medical Marijuana?
Oh yeah, well, I'm sorry, we jumped over something. There was a meeting on Monday of the State Board of Medical Marijuana Regulations. A lot of discussion about what occurred there, and one of the biggest topics, of course, was how dispensaries are going to be treated prior to the application process. So, there was a motion made, and why don't we talk a little bit about that?
All right, so at this meeting of the Board of Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation, or the Board of Medical Marijuana Licensing, they had made a suggestion about, or I guess one particular individual, one of the board members, I guess one of the retired Michigan State police officer, what's his name?
Bailey.
Yeah, Donald Bailey. He had made a suggestion that all of these currently operating businesses should close. Why? Because he believes, anyways, which is actually a blanket statement, which I don't even believe to be true, but he believes all of them are in violation of state law, and because of that, they should all close and not be put in consideration for the receipt of a provisioning center license, or even be able to be denied an application, I think, which is ludicrous on a couple different levels. First of all, I think in the most objectionable level is the fact that closing a lot of these dispensaries is going to close off of a lot of patients from getting their medicine. Even though it may be true that there are a lot of facilities that are operating in violation of the law in the distribution of medical marijuana to people that aren't their patients as registered by the Act, they are still patients those patients are receiving it legally and lawfully, and they have come to rely upon them. Meaning that instead of having a caregiver provide their medicine as originally contemplated by the Medical Marijuana Act, they have come to rely upon, and detrimentally possibly rely upon, the services of these dispensaries, many of which are providing very good services and very good medicine in all types of different forms necessary for these patients, and these patients aren't going to be able to get a lot of this stuff from their caregiver, from a caregiver. A caregiver is not going to be creating a lot of the products that are available from these dispensaries, and so that's one of the biggest issues.
Yeah, and so really I think the point, and it sort of hijacked the conversation of the whole meeting, was what is the impact on patients should these dispensaries be forced to close? Now, there's obviously a legal argument, as Barton was mentioning, as to the legality of them. There is some case law that described a certain type of fact pattern where it is illegal, and then hasn't been litigation on the other fact patterns. But most importantly, I think, was really the commentary of, do they really have the authority necessary to close it, or more, I think, is what is going to be required to get the license. And if you're operating in a way that is something the board doesn't like to see, they have the discretion not to issue it. And so to some extent, the board can say, if this fact pattern is happening, it'll be something we won't give a scrutiny over to not allow for that license. So if you're an operator, this is the risk reward. You're operating in a market where you're satisfying your patients' needs, and in the same vein, you're also making money in a marketplace that wasn't yet designed for a commercial purpose, and that's where we're headed. And so that caution is out there. We're going to see a lot of changes in that conversation. And certainly if you have more questions about it, we invite you to contact us here at the Cannabis Legal Group, and we'll walk you through what we see in the marketplace today. We do have a question, and I think it'll help us kind of jump ahead into discussing the capital, and that is whether or not a silent investor can be included. The statute specifically says all true parties of interest must be disclosed and vetted. And so I think it's fair to say if you have a 1% interest or more, you're going to be treated like you have 99%. And so the idea of having a silent partner or somebody who isn't fully disclosed is going to be something that could absolutely derail an application. So we need to understand right from the onset, if any investors are coming into this and you're raising capital, they have to understand that they're going to be in the application process, unless, of course, maybe they're a lender who's helping you buy just the land and the operator is going to lease it from that land. And so there might be some ways that we can work out ancillary investment for helping you move forward, but ultimately when it relates to an equity piece of this license from the state of Michigan, anyone who's getting 1% or more of that is going to be vetted the same.
So then I think that it's important then to discuss exactly what it means to have an equity position in a particular company or corporation or any type of enterprise, because there is a difference between loaning somebody capital than it is to be an equity partner. And generally, we are setting up these corporations either as a regular C corporation where there's shareholders or as a LLC where there's members. And either of those shareholders or members, they're going to be thought of as owners of the entity, especially when there's also operating agreements that we're setting up that identify exactly what those membership interests are and exactly how they're effectuated within the organization. The applicant is defined as anybody that is a member or manager or manager. I think the statute says managers. Member, manager, officer. So an individual that is like an officer on the board, even though they may not have an equity interest, they're still going to be an applicant. So if there's a board of directors, those are officers that are on the board: the treasurer, the secretary, the president, the vice president. Those are officers. They're all going to be considered as applicants. And as an applicant, and anybody that has any type of interest, ownership interest whatsoever. So as an applicant, you have to be subject to the requirements necessary to provide on the application everything that they're going to require. And that, though, is not the same as an individual that may loan a member money. So let's say we have an LLC, a two-member LLC. There's two members, and that's it. As far as the operating agreement goes, there's no other owners of the company. But one of these owners decides to get a loan from their parents, let's say, for a large amount of money. Does that parent then become an owner, and does that parent become an applicant? And it would be my belief, I know that the answer is no, because that parent is not an owner, and that parent does not have a legal right to or an expectation of the profits of the company. And that parent does have a right to get repaid, and so that perhaps may come from the company or not, because when you loan somebody money, I think that loan, in my estimate, in my example, that loan is going to one of the members personally, not to the actual company, which is another scenario. So in this scenario, that parent, that individual that's loaning money, is not an owner. It's best to have this documented in order to avoid any risk of the board thinking that there's some type of collusion going on or trying to hide the source of the funds. But a loan can and is definitely separate than a member self-funded.
Maybe I can break it down another way too, and really it is, what is the expectation to receive your money back? If you're in a position where you're waiting for there to be revenue in order to share in the profits of the company and the growth of the company, you're an equity partner, so to speak. We can use different words that are synonymous with equity, but you're in a position where your return is based specifically on the success of the company. A loan, by the other hand, just means you're entitled to reimbursement regardless of the success of the company. And so there's a specific return that's required based on an interest rate, a payment schedule, and an expectation from the lender at that point in time that despite the success of the company, they're going to get their money back. Now, often that can get secured against land or equipment or something else, so there's some other security to improve the risk for that lender. But that's different than somebody investing in the enterprise itself and being right there at the table with you from all the good, the bad, the ugly, the thick, the thin, and the rewards. And if that's the case, then that person should be expecting that the state is going to look at them as though they are in a position to be vetted. Similarly, I think as we break it down and look at the different forms that people can come into this with, if you are receiving money from somebody, and ultimately the state is going to wonder where the source of those funds come from, and that's why it has to be documented. We need clean money, so to speak. If you've been in the industry and you have unpaid taxes on money received from, say, owning a dispensary, for instance, that type of funds are going to be things that will be highly scrutinized by the state. I think it's a very reasonable expectation that if you can't source the funds to clean money that's from income, post-tax income, at that point in time, that's probably another reason to derail the application. A lot of what we're talking about are ways to improve your opportunity for success, not put in obstacles to get your license. And so if you are getting that kind of loan, number one, we want to make sure that we know where the source of those funds came from, and then we document, we paper it up so that when it's in your deposit account and we're showing what your liquidity is for purposes of carrying this business, that we can actually point to where all those sources came from. And I think that's going to be a very important thing for success as we move forward. Now, in order to get those loans, we're going to need to look at business plans, and we're going to need to do the things that are necessary. And it doesn't matter what the widget is. Here it's cannabis, but this is true of all business planning when you're seeking investors. You got to have a real detailed understanding of what your business is so the investor knows what their risk is. And in this instance, go back to a comment I said earlier, which is know your numbers. So you need to know your style. You need to know what your investment is really going to require. You can't just say, I think I need $100,000. Well, what are you doing with $100,000? You know, what is your plan? Because if I don't know your plan, I'm not giving you the money in the hopes that you might pay me back. I want to know specifically the connection between what you're doing with that money and how you intend to pay me back. And I think that that's going to be a very important thing that our clients are going to have to work on now. And to just give you a really easy example, if somebody puts into their planning to the state that they think they might need about $50,000 of lights, that doesn't really tell the state they've done a lot of research, because that doesn't tell us anything.
Or an investor.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, and this works on both sides of this. On the other hand, if they say, I need $49,512.15, and that includes the taxes because I need this many lights for this type of output based upon this type of square footage, then we know you've done the research, and that investor will start to trust what you're looking to do.
Right.
And that's how you get them to buy into your program.
And there's many different types of a business plan that need to be addressed. And what Craig said is important detail. It's got to be detailed. Certainly I've seen business plans that aren't detailed, that are kind of more broad, which is fine, as long as it's based upon some detail that's going to follow later. This detail, of course, including the type of equipment, right? But of course, also the building that's going to be needed, the cost of that building, especially as prices are steadily going up, and the cost of remodeling or rebuilding or redoing that building. That's something that needs to be identified, and it can be received. I mean, you can go out and find builders or contractors that go and look at a building and say, all right, this is, and then you have to have a plan as to what you want. And so it's also very important to have this operational plan. Or building design. A lot of people say, you know what, I know how to grow 72 plants, you know, but and I know what the building design should be for that, but that doesn't mean that you know the building design for a 500 or 1,000 plant grow, because scaling up like that, it just doesn't mean you multiply it by 3 or by 5. You have to understand how that 500 plant grow is going to operate within a facility, and understand the equipment necessary in order to do it. You know, just doubling your lights is not likely going to help. It's going to require a significant amount of planning in order to understand what needs to go in the business plan in order to be able to attract those investors. And I think, as you had mentioned, not only is this important for attracting the investors, but it's important for your application. And it's important not only for the state application, but for the municipal application as well. I just attended a meeting recently. It was very informational, where we had the opportunity to sit down with a number of township members in order to discuss our application before we actually submitted it. And it was interesting, the questions that they asked. One of them was, what's your marketing plan? They said to me, most of these businesses are going to fail. 1 in 3 businesses is going to fail. What is your marketing plan in order to ensure that you don't fail? That was a question that I wasn't anticipating from them, you know, but they want to ensure that their businesses that they're going to get licensed, they're going to be successful. And so that has to be addressed in your business plan. So what's your marketing plan? How much money are you going to spend on marketing? What are you going to do in order to effectuate, to ensure that you're going to be able to get the share of the market necessary for you to sustain your business over the next multiple number of years, not just the next year. You're going to have a plan that addresses it, and that marketing plan, of course, is going to have to address.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, just because you grew it didn't mean anyone bought it. So just understand that if you're a cultivator or grower license, you need to know how you're getting your product on the shelves. And so clearly it doesn't matter which part of the vertical we're talking about, marketing is going to be a key component. And that's one of the things that within both the business planning and the application stages says, this is why I need the money I'm asking for, this is how I'm using my money, and this is how 1 + 1 will equal 2, and it'll make us to the finish line based upon the investment made. Because one of the fears of going into this application process is being undercapitalized, and the state is really going to be worried and concerned about people that start the process and run out of money before they see revenue. And so you really have to have enough liquidity in order to carry the business while it's not making money, because there will be gaps in time building out your facilities, paying your employees, paying your contractors, buying the nutrients if you're a grower, buying the equipment for not only the lighting but the buckets in the dirt, and all the things that a grower needs, or a processor needs to buy the equipment, the extraction equipment, and of course, set it all up. And there's going to be time periods you got to pay for testing. You're going to have your product tested, so you're going to be outlaying a lot of money. And the business plan will kind of help us schedule the use of those funds, both for purposes of, again, engaging an investor to get them to trust what you're intending to do for their return, but also so that the state recognize you've done the due diligence to know what it is you're seeking to do. And before they give those licenses to anyone, they're not just going to say, hey, all right, good luck, God bless, we hope you make it. They're worried about people actually running out and then black market selling the equipment, black market selling the flower they started to grow because they get desperate. Desperation leads to bad action. And so these applications and these business plans really have to prove that you've done that due diligence and worked your way through it. And, if we break down each of these licenses, there's components within each that'll be unique to each one. As we said, dirt, for instance, to growers, or nutrients. The machines for processors, shelving and stuff for dispensaries, inventory equipment, software you're going to need to do, computers you're going to need to have, security equipment. All of these items cost money, and it has to be planned for in advance. And we, as Barton was saying, some townships, maybe not all, are going to duplicate the efforts of the state. They're going to say, although the state vetted you and gave you a license, we want you to prove to us you're still worthy to be in our township. And others might say, well, if the state said it's okay, then we're good too, and just as long as the land's compliant. And so we're finding that balance between the municipalities right now. And if you're in one of those that's going to have a tougher scrutiny, again, just have these details known now. Now is the time to start working out those details. Contact these suppliers, get quotes, get it down on writing. Put that into the back of the business plan as Exhibit A or B or C or wherever it fits. Similarly, we're going to need to talk about bios and individuals. As we look for investors, they want to know who they're investing in. Very often, it's not just the plan, it's the people. And they got to feel a connection. And so as we talk about bios of people, we know that there's certain things that the state will not allow people to apply for. If you have a felony more recently than 10 years, you're out before you start. But on the other hand, maybe somebody had a bankruptcy, maybe they had a failed business, or maybe they had super successful businesses that are under the radar and nobody knows about. These are the type of things that the bio needs to start to spell out so that people can truly understand who they're investing in order to trust that.
This is going to be a highly regulated industry, and so that means that the applicants, the owners, individuals that are going to be listed on the executive summary are going to be investigated significantly. And so it's best to put in all of those qualifications in the business plan, so the owners, the member managers, the managers of this business, and the owners of this business spell it out exactly what your qualifications are about your prior business history, or successful history, or licensing history. If somebody's been licensed in any capacity whatsoever, like a liquor license, those are things that are important that are going to be taken into consideration by the board in the application. And so talk about compliance history.
And I think the other area that it does, it allows you to spell out your mission and your passion. I met with a client who is a teacher. They have a history in their family of some really unfortunate things relating to opiate crisis. And their story and what brought them into medical cannabis is very compelling. Very, very compelling. And being a teacher and an educator and somebody who really studied the science behind the medical cannabis, you can't know that on the surface. When you dig a layer or two under the onion and you get to know them, you see why they're going to be successful for their own passion for what they're doing. and the caregiver-patient relationships that they currently have and the success that they're seeing from that. And so again, this is the area where, as you're putting together the business plan and seeking this investor, it's also the opportunity to kind of write your script and write your bio and make sure that you get all the bullet points down that you really need to properly sell yourself. Don't underscore some of the history you have that brought you to this, because that passion that's there is the thing that could be the trigger, of course, that causes the investor to say, I want to follow that person down this road, instead of just putting money elsewhere. And I think that those are going to be very significant things. We did have a couple of comments, and if I may, there's a question asking about commercial zones and industrial. The statute says industrial and agricultural for grow, and quite frankly, some towns in our state have all agricultural and others have none. So if you're looking for it, you just need to go to more rural areas. Another thing was requesting that September 15th shutdown date of dispensaries. We kind of addressed it briefly early on, but just the quick and the short of it is there is a motion pending with the board. It hasn't been approved. It hasn't been voted on. So until it is, that date is something that we all hear about, but there's no formality to it yet. It may change.
I think that they don't even have the power really to shut anybody down, by the way. So for them saying, we vote to shut all dispensaries down, nobody, that doesn't mean that they have to shut down. I think what they're implying is that if you don't shut down, that's going to impede your process of your application, and that may be the basis upon which that the application can be denied.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, and as we look at it, maybe if they framed it, the whole conversation a little bit differently, it might not take the tenor it has, and the framing of it is that the board has the discretion. If they're telling you that they want to see you not operating at the time you file your application, and you are, you've basically given them a reason to say no. And we know that this discretion is going to come up. If you have a felony that's 9 years, 8 months away, you can't apply. If it's 10 years, 2 months ago, you can apply, but they have the discretion to say yes or no. And I think similarly, as we look at the dispensaries, if you follow what they're asking you to do, even as much as you hate doing it, you've at least done something that says, you told me to do this, and therefore giving you a higher scrutiny than the guy who didn't listen to you. So again, what can you do to improve your opportunity for their discretion? Now, whether they have the authority to shut everybody down and all that's a whole separate argument. But for our purposes, we want to get people licenses. We want you to be successful. And if that means you have to do something you don't like to do because you have a differing opinion, but that's where the board is, our advice is follow what the board's telling you to do. I don't think we can offer anything else other than that right now.
No, I can. I suggest that you sell your business. I mean, if you want, listen, dispensaries that are in operation right now, even if they shut down by September 15th or whatever date, there's still going to be an issue about the fact that they're exhibiting poor moral judgment and poor moral character in the operation of that dispensary up until now. And so just because you shut down doesn't mean you're good. It's still an issue, and I think that a lot of people need to consider perhaps selling their dispensary and then moving on from there, because if it's an issue, and if they're looking for opportunities to deny people.
Yeah, they want to start off saying no. And if you have value in your land or your property, there's significant value. If you're already in a position where you know it's going to be a compliant parcel, you're one step ahead. And so that sale, if that's what you intend to do, I think the back end of that would be is make sure your books look like they will be next year. So if you're operating like you're in a licensed regulated capacity where you know all of your logs, your daily activity, your sales, all of your transfers were caregiver to caregiver. There was no patient that ever came in who had a caregiver that received a transfer from one of your caregivers. There's no clear indication how people will make it through to the finish line that have done it, but it's, I think, pretty safe to say if there's any corners cut at all, it's not going to be successful. And so if there is an intention to continue to pursue it, and first and foremost, follow what the board tells you to do, but secondly, we really got to start looking at putting you in a position that you would act as though you will next year. And then at least there's been at least a claim that says, I've done everything you would have expected of me no harm, no foul kind of a claim. But if you've had these unlawful transfers anywhere on your books, or you've not paid taxes on your money, or you've cut corners in other areas, that is going to be a significant problem. And I think that there's many dispensaries, or probably just owners that heard that and think there's no way I can clean those books up the right way.
Yeah, you're supposed to be paying your taxes. Just because you're operating a dispensary doesn't mean that all of a sudden you just are immune from the 6% sales tax. Because I don't see any of them, or not, I shouldn't say any of them. Many dispensaries I've seen aren't paying sales tax and withholding it, and your books are going to have to demonstrate that. And so, to whatever degree that you think that you're going to provide information to the board on your application regarding your operation, it doesn't include the fact that you've been paying sales tax and obeying the law. That's going to be a problem as well.
So I think as we wrap up, one last thing that I would mention about just the raised capital and business planning is your exit strategy. And just like we're talking about some maybe dispensary owners, this could be their exit strategy. I have a compliant parcel, we've been in business, people know where we're at, it's a good place for somebody else to apply for a license. That's an exit strategy. And if you're taking on somebody else's money, you better tell them how they're getting their money back out. And so there should be a plan built into your business plan about where the end is, how do they get repaid, and what is the long game. And so those are things to consider as you're putting your plans together, as we prepare for the applications. And we'll look forward to bringing you more Cannabis Business Lives over the next several weeks, discussing topics that we think will be helpful both at the local and at the state level and for long-term operations.
Remember to go to our page again if you're looking to get in the market for a job as either a provisioning center or a cultivator or a processor, or even secure transportation and secure testing, safety compliance facilities. If you're looking for a job, go to our site to cannabislegalgroup.com/cannabis-jobs, and we can help you not only pair you with somebody that was looking for the type of work that you're offering, but also provide you the training necessary in order to provide the qualifications necessary to get in the industry.
Yeah, we're currently consulting with different operators looking for different places in this. Where's your lane? Even if you're an employee, we at the Cannabis Legal Group can help steer you in the right direction. Feel free to contact us. All of our contact information is on our website at cannabis-legalgroup.com. So for Craig Aronoff and Barton Morris, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.